Hey, welcome back to what we're calling Mission Control out here in the lobby, Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas. Welcome. So good to have you watching today. Wherever you're watching from, make sure leave your name and where you're watching from in the comments section. We'd love to give you a little bit of a shout out. Great session there, Dr. Paul. I thought some great information.
Yeah, great. Anytime you talk about education, you're propagating yourself, you're exponentially increasing your influence in that particular area that you're working. So I love that. And, I'm also glad that we're getting some word that some of our people over at Tenwick Mission Hospital are watching, and so Russ and Beth White at Tenwick Mission Hospital, we're so glad you're watching. Yeah. I'm really glad too to have my good friend Allan Sawyer with us. Allan, welcome.
Thank you.
Allan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an obstetrician gynecologist, practiced for 24 years in Arizona, and then 3 years ago sold my practice, and I've been working now with Samaritans Purse, teaching and serving in other parts of the world.
Yeah. And where have you served?
Oh, Papua New Guinea, Zambia, Togo, Cameroon, Kenya, Uganda, Burundi.
And recently Zambia.
Zambia?
Yeah, because we were there together.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Allan, if anybody believes in education, it's you. Tell us about that.
Thank you, Paul. You know, when I go on mission trips, I try to make the amount of time that I'm there last longer by teaching the people that are there. If I go and I do some surgeries, some C-sections, I've helped those women, but then I leave. But if I can teach another doctor how to do a C-section, or I teach them my knowledge while I'm there, then I leave, but that knowledge stays there.
Yeah, so good. Tell us about Sudan. I love that story.
Well, when I was in Sudan just a few months ago, I was working with a team of 6 clinical officers, so kind of the equivalent of an intern in terms of training. Mm-hmm. And I was just pouring myself into them. I had one of them in my clinic with me at all times, partly to teach, but also for translation purposes. But the nice thing is that they all communicate with each other on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
And so I still communicate with these guys on WhatsApp. Just a few days ago, one of them was asking me a question about infertility management, and I was sending him information on WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So that's
You know, Allan, I want to ask you a question. We'll have time in other segments to explore this even more, but they say that in sub-Saharan Africa, the most dangerous thing a woman can do is get pregnant. 830 moms die, mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, every day. Many of it related to childbirth. Is that your experience? Is that what you see?
Well, it's a huge problem because of preeclampsia and hemorrhage and lack of medicine and lack of availability of care. These poor women, they labor for, like in Sudan, they'll labor and labor and labor for 12 hours pushing, and then they finally get on the back of a motorcycle or get in the back of a truck, like a pickup truck, and drive again for hours to get to the hospital.
Yeah.
And so just from the lack of resources, the lack of facilities, the lack of manpower, maternal mortality is awful.
Yeah, and I said earlier in an earlier segment, when a mom dies, and very often the baby, if they're pregnant, if the baby dies, the mom dies. That's a huge impact socially to the family and to just the whole structure of the community, isn't it?
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're all too used to death.
Yeah.
Because they see it so much. But yeah, if a mom dies, a lot of times it's, you can't just go buy formula at the store. Exactly. Even if it's available, they can't afford it. And so if a mom dies, then the baby's going to most likely die too.
Yeah. Do you see any hope on the horizon in remote parts of the world like sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, I think education, with what we're doing in terms of training programs, the PACS program for training of general surgeons, I think that's going to set out a core of people that understand these issues, and now we're looking at expanding that into bringing in obstetrics as part of PACS training.
Oh, that's great.
And especially at Tenwick Hospital, I think that's going to be the springboard for all of this.
You know, one thing I've seen is that sometimes you don't have to have a residency training to be able to do a C-section, which is a life-saving operation. And what I've found is, especially in countries like Zambia, they will allow what we call non-clinician surgeons to be trained in simple things like an emergency hysterectomy, a C-section, maybe an appendectomy, maybe simple bowel resection. And just those not residency trained physicians very often will go in the remote areas and rural areas and provide great care.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons with that. We could talk for a long time about that, but for an uncomplicated case, absolutely. The problem is that when things go wrong, they need backup somehow.
Yeah.
So sometimes not knowing what they don't know is a problem too.
Yeah. I think any place you go, and you and I can attest to this, any place we go, we take care of complicated obstetrics. And so you'll have people that aren't as well versed, like you just said, doing operations, have complications, and very often if they don't have somebody like us to take care of them, it's a very difficult situation.
Right.
So, they say if you save the mothers, you save Africa. I love that saying. And if you educate women, you'll save Africa. So anything we can do to help save the moms, it's just a great thought. Chuck?
Dr. Sawyer, I love hearing your background and what you do, and for the lay person like me, I'm sitting here going, well, I know Samaritans Purse does a whole lot more than operating on people, right? Like, for the lay person, what kinds of opportunities does Samaritans Purse have available?
Wow, I mean, that's a
wide open question.
I mean,
we have plenty of time.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that, Samaritans Purse is kind of the parent organization, but then under that, there's World Medical Mission, which supports mission hospitals around the world.
And that's the part that you're involved with, right?
Yeah, one of three.
Oh, okay.
Then I'm part of DART, which is the Disaster Assistance Response Team, which responds to international disasters. And then there's a section called Special Projects, or just projects that people don't know about. Projects is kind of
Children's Heart, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's just when nothing fits into the right category. Right. But there's the Children's Heart Project. There's we're going around the world finding kids with bad hearts, congenital heart disease, and helping them get fixed. I think the greatest ministry out there that most people can participate in is North American Ministries, which is going out with Samaritans Purse to domestic disasters, like the flooding that just happened in Oregon, and the flooding happened just somewhere else.
Alabama.
In Alabama.
Alabama is a big
and so going out and helping.
So what kinds of things can I do in a situation like that? I see what's going on in Alabama. Samaritan's Purse is going there to help, and I just want to go. Do I bring my John boat? Or
get on the website and go to their North American Ministry section, say I want to volunteer, and then you go and you help clean out somebody's house. They call it mudding a house, where you're cleaning out all the mud out of their house. You help tear down the wet drywall, and
we have a lot of experience with that here in Houston.
Yeah, exactly.
I can say, Chuck, that this is now Harvey was 2017. It was a devastating flood here in Houston, and even now in 2020, Samaritan's Purse is still here rebuilding homes.
Wow.
That's the dedication they have to this effort.
And that's why I asked the question I did, because you don't want me going and operating on anybody, but I have a heart to help, so that's why I was asking what kinds of opportunities are available.
You reminded me of I was taking another OBGYN with me, somebody who was in training, and I was trying to get her husband to come with us. And her husband owned a flooring company. But he said, no, you guys, you go and play doctor, I'm going to stay and take care of my flooring company. And we encouraged him, we said, we can always use you. And he said, no. So he didn't come. And Nicole, his wife, who's the OBGYN, the two of us walked into Kajabi Hospital in Kenya. And we walked in the doors of the hospital, and the front doors opened, and we looked. They were tearing up all the flooring at the hospital. And she just stood there and wept because he hadn't come. And so, whatever the skills are that you have, come and use those skills on missions.
That's like full circle, Dr. Paul. Like, that's exactly why the M3 conference exists, to connect, to make those kinds of connections, isn't it?
There's something for everyone.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the next segment coming up. It's got a novel title. It's called What Drugs Not to Bring on a Medical Missions Trip. And Allan, that's so important, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny, you think you can bring the latest, greatest medicines that we have here in the United States, and unless they're used to using them over there, and secondly, if you give a great heart drug and 30 days from now they have no more, you really haven't benefited the system. So I think it's really important to listen to this next section on what drugs not to bring, what drugs to bring to mission trips.
Well, and to communicate with the doctors that are there, the missionaries that are there. just getting ready to go to Zambia, and I was talking to Dr. Missy.
Yeah.
And I had looked at AmeriCares on their website, ordered a whole bunch of medicines, but one of them was extended release propranolol, and she said, "Allan, I appreciate that, but we can't use that because it's a fourth line drug. It's not available here. We will never use it. So please don't bring 20 pounds of extended release propranolol."
Yeah, so good to know exactly what they need. You know, what is the expression? Scratch where it's itching. Right? Yeah, exactly.
Right. One of the, you may notice as you've been watching some of the construction going on in the background, that's actually really good news because they're building some of the sets for some of our partners who are here. So for everybody who's in attendance can walk around and see and get a feel for the kind of work and the kind of mission, the kind of ministry opportunity that you would have for yourself. Obviously you're watching us and you're not here in person. We do have some great resources so you can still connect to all of the ministries that are here and the opportunities. It's this brochure and you can download it. Just go to m3missions.com/resources. m3missions.com/resources. It's this exact booklet in a PDF form, of course, but you can print it out, follow along. And I know, Dr. Paul, we're getting ready to go to our next session. I believe it's Dr. Laura, is that correct?
Let's see, it is. Actually, she's going to talk about international standards for disaster and refugee response. It's going to be refugee response. That'll be a great session.
Yeah.
Laura's very well versed in that, and I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. And coming up later, we have a lot more. And again, I really want to encourage you to download this brochure because you can actually see our schedule. You'll know what's going on because we know you got to get up and take a little break every now and then, but we want to encourage you to stay here with us and not just stay here, but invite your friends too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially if you're overseas, you know, you have friends that we may not have their email contact. Let them know for us and they can tune in and be a part of M3.
Dr. Sawyer, before we head back into our breakout session, how can people connect with you, Samaritans Purse, get involved, give us some information on that?
Really, the best way is through the Samaritans Purse website. If you Google me, you'll find lots of stuff out there about how to contact me and my blog and read about where I am. When I'm traveling, I actively blog.
Oh, do you?
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And we can find that again where?
It's AZOBGYN.
We'll go to Samaritans Purse and then from there we'll find it.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we're going to get back into our breakup sessions. Thanks so much for joining us here at the M3 Conference live from Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas.